Good evening, welcome to the Middleton and Oxford Town Council Finance and Operations Committee meeting for November 2024. Are we any apologies for absence?
Any more present?
Well, we're missing.
Charlotte.
Huh?
Oh, Charlotte.
Yeah, she's absent as opposed to apologies.
Probably question time. No members of the public.
Okay, good.
So we'll move on to item number 4, which is declarations of interest. Members declare any interest not currently entering the members' register of interest, receive written requests, or grant any request for dispensation appropriate. Anybody? Cheryl.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As I've recently been elected onto the Town Trust Management Committee, I believe that means I do have an interest. I'm not sure if it's pecuniary or whether it's just personal, but I'd like to declare it now and obviously take account of that should there be any discussions about the Town Trust grant.
Yeah, following that, so being triple-hatted like I am, so I have to declare like Cheryl I'm the chair of the Town Trust, and I don't think that should deserve a dispensation, to be honest, because I'm quite heavily involved, quite sort of senior position, if you like, the way that charity operates. So I would suggest that anything that refers to the Town Trust, I'll step out. Yeah. Regarding the Community Trust, I'm also in the Community Trust, although I have I don't have any, powers. I don't sign checks or anything for that, so I would request a dispensation for my position.
Are you a trustee?
I am a trustee. But I was appointed by the council as a trustee. I was appointed by the council to the Town Trust as well, but it's in the Town Trust I sign checks, and the Community Trust I don't have any financial interest, no activity, any competition from either organisation. So they're both non-pecuniary, but I certainly have a more senior position in the Town Trust. Therefore, I would request a dispensation for the Community Trust. Now, if you look historically, this is standard practice in this Town Council, and there is lots of references in minutes over the years of Community Trust trustees being granted dispensation. However, it's up to you whether or not you grant dispensation.
Well, similarly, I'm a trustee of the Community Trust. We spoke about this the other day. You the term of reference help. So I think we're okay to discuss.
Well, I think there's a point here, really. Okay, so if you're a trustee, you probably could be arguing a pecuniary interest because you're a trustee. Yeah. Sorry, let me finish. So when you're sat around this table, okay, you should have if you're dual-hatted, you should have the interest of this council at heart. Okay. If you're a trustee, you should have the trust's interest at heart. So when you need to be able to separate quite clearly who you're speaking for, yeah, and you shouldn't be speaking on behalf of the community trustee. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I see that.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
But I would suggest the community trustee, because I think the grant applications, yeah, have been documented by the appropriate management of the community trust. The the manager, yeah? Because you could get into the phrase, well, I know a bit about this because I'm on it. Well, that's slightly naughty, I think, to be, a simple point of clarification, i.e. Thursday next week is the 28th, is different than saying, what they mean is this, that and the other, okay? Okay.
Well, I mean, as I said, I would request a dispensation. It's up to the council to grant that dispensation, as it has done in the past. And bearing in mind, I would always have an open mind when it comes to any debate, and obviously the council's interests when we represent the council. Okay. Sorry.
I'd just like to point out that given the various interests around the table with the Town Trust and the Community Trust, we might become inquirate.
That is absolutely.
I think perhaps
You need
Perhaps
three for a court.
the compromise is that if we get to a point where we've got an issue to do with grant funding for either of the trusts, then it needs to go to full council. I don't know. Yeah, it's just that there is undoubtedly a conflict of interest there. you can't ignore that. But obviously
A potential conflict of interest.
there is. Even if it's just funding for events or whatever that you feel passionately about, or it's or building projects that you feel passionately about on the trust or whatever. So there's always going to be a conflict. But I think we've just got to be sensible of the fact that half the council belong to these trusts, and I think that it needs to be ratified by full council if there's any issue there, any areas where there's disagreements.
Well, should we see where we get to in points?
Yeah.
And then see if we have to revisit them. Can I suggest that? Yeah?
Can I also ask as well, Sean, because you're still registered on your registered interest as an interest in the Pat Sam's nightclub, and is that still relevant at the moment though? Because
Now it's closed.
are you still the leaseholder in the building? Could theoretically open again and run as a business, because that I would say is probably financial competition with the community trust, and that could be a conflict as well.
I don't have a lease for the building.
Okay, if that's gone, that's fine. That's fine.
Sorry.
That should be updated in the register.
What I would say is, it's up to individual members to decide whether they've got a pecuniary interest or a personal interest. Yeah? The only test of it is if somebody challenges it in the court of law. Okay? But some of it's about optics, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Just to clarify, I need to give the monitoring officer. I'll be seeing him next week and going through my declaration of my interests anyway. So we automatically update them on a regular basis.
Great, thank you.
So, okay, I'm just a bit confused on that part.
Have you got that?
What's the discontent? Oh,
Well, everybody's declared an interest apart from Sean in the trusts. Okay?
okay.
We haven't decided, it depends how the debate goes, whether that's, depending on the debate, whether we might just not discuss the matter at all because of the interests.
Well, when we get to it,
Yeah, we'll see that.
there's a reason why we may be not
Yeah,
be able to anyway.
Yeah.
So let's get to that point because it might be very straightforward.
Okay, so item 5 is to confirm the minutes of the previous meeting. Does anybody have any points to make? Yes, or are we going to accept them?
Yeah, I'm happy
So,
to.
all right. So Sean's proposing second, accepting Cheryl's second, all in favour? It's the 18th.
The 18th today. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. So item number 6 is office relocation. To note the cost of £500 to move the office building from Unit 14 to the Solar Centre. Removal company was appointed under delegated authority and is Parfit Removals. Everybody okay with that?
Noted.
Just to note, yeah.
Can I ask one question about that?
You could try.
Has the and I don't know this genuinely, but has the I guess it's community trust or the town trust formally agreed to that move now?
Yes.
It has.
Yeah. Yeah. We signed
You
The
think I would? You
agreement.
think I would? Maybe I
Yeah.
So that's fine. That's fine.
it. Yeah. We signed it Friday? Thursday, Friday?
Oh, yeah.
So is that the community trust?
Yes.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. So item number 7, the annual pay award. To note, the annual NJC pay award for 24-25 has been agreed with an increase of 2.5%. Increase will be shown within the November salary payments with back pay until the 1st of April 2024. So that documents in there. Everyone see that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. And then on to item number 8, accounting statements. Consider approval of the bank reconciliation for October. The payments for October. There's A, B is the income expenditure report for October, and C is the budget review report for October.
Right, we'll do A first because I've got
Yes.
some paperwork
Yeah.
to sign.
So anybody?
You can't sign the approval. The
I
bank
think it was
recs.
last time, didn't we?
Yes, because he was chair.
No?
That's right.
So A is a, yeah? Nobody's got any questions about A? No? Okay.
And he's-
So, consider approval. We need to vote on that one now.
Is this the put, so I approve of the bank reconciliation?
Yes.
And then I also need somebody to sign, unfortunately Martin can't sign.
Yeah.
Yes, you need to vote to approve the bank
Okay,
reconciliation.
so I propose we accept the bank reconciliation for October. Chair will second in. All in favour? Good. So these, which one is it?
You need both, I need somebody to
Right,
sign
can somebody
that.
sign these? Chair will sign.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, tell them to sign it, I love it. So I realised I hadn't circled the figures. So sign both bits of paper, the bits I've circled, please, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Come back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So item B, to consider the income and expenditure report for October 2024.
Payment, did I miss that?
Oh, and the payments, we've got to do payments.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
It's acceptable. All right, sorry. I thought that we could do that as well. So that needs together.
Yes, no, it doesn't need
It
signing.
needs to sign.
I'm sorry, I missed the,
Well, it's as down as one
yeah.
item,
okay.
isn't it? Item A.
Right, okay, sorry.
Right, so we're on item B, consider the income and expenditure report for October 2024. Anybody want to say anything about this? No? So I propose we accept the income and expenditure report. Second, Gordon, and all in favour. And then item C is consider the budget. No, item C is consider the budget review report for October 2024. Anybody got any thoughts about that? No, sure. Shaking their heads.
Is that the same as item 9 as well?
No.
No.
Oh, it's the same document, probably, because
Right,
it happens to be, yeah.
That's fine.
No, the budget review for October is the monthly one.
Oh,
The budget review should be draft, is for draft. Sorry, we didn't pick that up.
No, but
What should I do?
we're referring to that in item 9.
Yeah.
Right.
But we're accepting that, are we? Yep. Without any other.
No
This one.
question.
That one is just coming up different on my screen.
I sent out an updated one on Saturday.
Ah, okay, so I've got that one. Yeah, are we going to raise anything connected with that in item 9 if it's pertinent to the budget rather than...
Yeah, because
Yeah, I don't
it's
want to
so-
hold this bit up.
yeah.
Okay. Okay, so I propose to accept. Cheryl second, and we're all in favour.
Yeah, so we're just noting that, really. Because you're going to discuss it as part of the budget, aren't you?
Okay. Yeah. So we're on to item 9 to consider the budget review report for October 2024. So we have a.
I can put it on the big screen if you like me to.
Does anybody want it on the big screen? Have we got it on the screen? So we've got it in front of us. So we've got a budget summary that is.
Oh, can I make a little announcement before we start? So this afternoon, about 4:30, I got an email from Bain Section 151 officers about submitting the precept. And they don't require our submission till the 11th of February, which is a little bit later than normal, which means you could make a decision late as the 3rd of February, whatever that Monday is before it, okay?
Okay.
So it's probably if you ask for the 31st of January, you've got to make a decision by the 6th of January, haven't you? There's more time for you, I think, yeah? Which might be useful when you get into the weeds, as opposed to trying to solve everything right now.
Yep.
Right, so the budget summary we've got here is is an increase of 4.63%. I think it's more like, that was 18 or something last year. And
19.
19 and 8%.
19.34.
Yeah, and the year before.
8.62.
So
I haven't got the
it's-
year before.
Yeah, no, so that's just under 5%. It's on the current figures that we're working on, leaves us with a general reserve of £213,409, which is 4.5, just over 4.5 months of general reserve. And we were looking at between 3 and 6. The recommendation of the documents from the RFOs, and there was an extract from the practitioner's guide here, which gave some guidance, but we're looking between 3 and 6, and nearer to 6 as a general reserve we're aiming for. This just meets all the commitments really that we've got this current year. Doesn't add anything new on apart from increases in areas, inflationary increases and things like that. So that's what we've got. How do we want to do this? Do we want to go down it and raise any points as we go down the working version on there, or is there anything that somebody wants to say particularly?
Well, my first question would be that 213 figure. How optimistic is that number, considering we've still got some unknowns with Town Hall?
That's our best guess today.
Best guess.
Okay, so it'd be perhaps be prudent to err on the side of caution with that number.
Well, what I would say is, so forgive me, Kate, yeah? But I would say, currently today, and we have to put a number in every line of what we think, okay? We think it's 214,000. A lot can change.
Yes.
So I would say, forgive me if I'm doing what previous councils, I would say 214 now, 150 is probably pretty safe, and 300 might be achievable. That's a huge range, yeah? I wouldn't hang a hat on 214, 210, 220. It's about orders of magnitude. So at 214, if we get it wrong by 30%, down to 150. If we get it wrong by 30%, which is a big chunk, it goes about 290, something like 280. So if you figure that wide range, we've got a figure in the middle there. Now there'll be some winners and losers, yeah? I mean, there's a whole host of things, there's variables. Grant funding in January, you might give 2,000 out, you might give 10,000 out. So there's lots of variables. So don't get hung up on the precise figure. It's about roughly where.
Sure.
If we do delay approving the budget till February, which we can, we will, by February, we'll have better, because you'll be a month out from the end of the year, so we will have more finalised.
I mean, what it might be useful to tell you is about the level of the general reserve. So our current general reserve, well, funding, well, we've currently got 1.1 million in the bank, haven't we? Yeah? So if we think that the town hall, we spent 1,080,000 so far?
So far I've spent 1.3.
No, in this year. Okay.
Just bear with me.
Okay, so there's £1 million. I'll use round numbers and I'll do expenditure slightly over, round it up, and I'll do income slightly down.
So I can interrupt. This year you spent 444,000, but obviously you've been doing it for 4 years.
Sorry. So the cost of the town hall project, not excluding the ancillary bits, but the construction bits, we got told last time it was 1.56 million, didn't we? Let's put that 1.6. Leave us an overspend, yeah? There. Okay, let's assume we've paid £1 million of it now. We paid more than that, haven't we? Yeah? Okay. So we got notionally £600,000 to pay towards the construction project, haven't we? Yeah, of money in our bank. And that money is actually 1.1 million, let's call that £1 million. Yeah, round it down, saves £100,000 our favour. If you've got £1 million, and you know you've got £600,000 of liability for the town hall, that should leave you £400,000. Yeah, in very general terms. If you think your precept is, let's call it £600,000 because the maths is easy, yeah? Each month, on average, you spend £50,000 a month. 1250s are £600,000. You've got November, December, January, February, March. You've got 5 months left. Assuming everything's straight line, that's £250,000 of committed expenditure. Of the 400, that leaves you 150,000, doesn't it? Yeah? So even those very broad terms, you get to 150. And I've rounded some things up and I've expended some things down to give you a bit more flat. So in very general terms, I mean, you know, I can get to 150,000 really quickly in my head based upon that. Now, there's variables, yeah, but there'll be as many winners and losers likely, yeah.
So I'm not questioning the.
No, I'm just thinking how to think about it in general terms as opposed to precise numbers.
Okay, so just to be clear, I'm not questioning the numbers. I'm saying that we're working within a very wide range there.
Yeah.
And I would prefer to be erring on the side of caution when we start looking at a budget, particularly where we've got to try and repair the damage to the reserves. So, so it's good that we've got a number, we've got a stake in the ground there at 213 as a mid-range number. Personally, I prefer, as we go through, when we get to the end points, that we look at that. Now, we have got the advantage of being able to reassess this right up to the beginning of March to see where the actual numbers are coming in. But as I say, there's a lot of unknowns, particularly on that town hall at the moment. We know where we are in that situation. There's a lot of volatility in there. So I'm just saying, I just want us to be mindful of that and be cautious in our numbers.
Cheryl?
Agreed. But one of the things that's been occurring to me is when we talk about, you know, either 6 months of reserves or whatever, I've always thought that what you do is you take that amount of money and you lock it away in the public sector deposit fund, and it just sits there as your security because that's what the internal auditor says you need. But there is another way of looking at it, and that is that if we look at the working cash flow, for instance, every 6 months we're going to get half the precept in. That means that our reserves will go up with all that money in, and we haven't spent it all yet. So I think we need to understand is, what are we trying to do here? Are we saying we want this amount of money to be in general reserves and it's got to be locked away in public sector deposit fund and not used? Or are we going to say, well, actually, as long as our cash flow during the point doesn't dip below this level, and at most of the time it will be higher, then actually we've got more flexibility in terms of what we do. So it's only because I always used to assume that it had to be locked away.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's reserves are there for a reason. That if it's locked away, then it doesn't actually serve its purpose as reserves. But no, I
think the point there is, say we are right at 214,000 for argument's sake. On the 31st of March, we have £214,000 in our accounts. Within 3 weeks, we have another £300,000. So we have £514,000. And in that month, assuming straight line spend, we only spend 50,000. So you'd have the 300 plus the 200, 500. End of the month, you spend 50,000. It's at 450. In June, you lose another 50,000. It's down to 400. In July, it's down to 350. In August, it's down to 300. In September, it's down to 250. But then you get another injection of £300,000. And so and because you've got some discretionary expenditure, yeah, you know, you can change course halfway through the year. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, at the moment, I'm not suggesting you shouldn't. I mean, I would be saying I would love you to have of something like £300,000.
if we didn't have a town hall project in the condition it's in, then we wouldn't be having this conversation because we would be able to work out our numbers far better than a 30% margin. But we are in that position, so we need to be mindful of that. And of course, the problem with the precept system is we have to predict now what next year's income is going to be, and there's no way of increasing revenue in that model. So we've got to get it. We've got to be pretty, and we've got to be cautious because we are heading into a period with this town hall where we really could get bitten if we're not careful. So we've got, as I'm just saying, we just need to take a cautious approach with this, particularly when we're looking at how much we want to put back into reserves to protect us.
Good.
Yeah, right, it's budgeting really, isn't it? I mean, I've been saying this for a while. I think the council should develop a proper reserves policy.
Yeah.
Because there's just nothing. So all these figures are kind of, in my opinion, taken out of thin air. Saying, oh, 3 months, 6 months, 4.5 months sounds about right. As far as I can tell, the reserve policy almost should be locked away to an extent, because what you're saying is this is the emergency sum after all committed expenditure for the unforeseen disaster that suddenly turns up, and we should be able to work that out. Now, at the beginning of the year, we've got fixed costs, which are staff, and certain commitments we can't get out of. We take those off our balance straight away, right? And then we have a reserve, and that reserve is unlikely to be used. And as the year goes on and it's not used, the council can start to get a bit more flippant with it, if you like. You might be able to put a bit of money into projects because we know the next precept's coming up, and we know we can set a new precept, but we should have a risk assessment of how much reserves we need, and what is our worst case scenario. I was asking Kate earlier, I said, what happens if Baines didn't give us the money for the precept for 3 months? Would we go insolvent? That's a real emergency.
Well, so one of the reasons for having 6 months is because
Yeah.
you only get paid 6 months. That's one of the arguments for having 6 months.
So I think we should have a policy. That's the first thing.
Okay.
And
That's what we're here discussing tonight.
well, we kind of are, because we were asking how much the precept level, the reserves level should be. And we shouldn't mix up the reserves level with the cash flow either. They're different things. And the reserves level is does not it takes into account like committed expenditures. Cash flow will go up and down. So we don't have that.
Look, there is already a strategy around how much reserve we should be holding.
Well, this meeting agreed last time, the target was 6 months.
Yeah. But it wasn't
That
necessarily.
policy already exists. It exists with all councils, parish,
Thank
town,
you very much, but it wasn't
districts. There was a policy.
It should be based on a
Wait a
risk.
second.
It should be based on a risk assessment, and I don't think that risk assessment it is, because I haven't seen it. And if somebody could show it to me.
Okay.
So, and everyone else has got a lot of chat, so there's a few more things I didn't say.
Well,
So
we should have on that
policy.
item.
Agree.
Have you finished on the item about how we judge where the
Well,
reserves
it seems we
be
should
at?
have a reserve policy, right?
Yes.
And otherwise it's very difficult to work out.
And then Sean is saying we do have a reserve policy.
Can
We
I
do
see
have a
it?
reserve
Can I
policy.
see it?
And
Let me
we
finish.
know how much we're supposed to keep in reserves. We just discussed how much our reserve level should be as a minimum. We discussed that.
But we don't know what that's based on.
But a risk assessment, if you're going to do a risk assessment now, you then have to put that risk assessment down hall, which is what basically has just happened, which is why we're looking at a wide range of 30%. Because the risk assessment that these taken, albeit quite a basic one, is we have a significant level of risk, so you need a 30% margin either way. If we didn't have that, and we were just doing our normal services, then our risk assessment would come to a different conclusion, and the band would be narrower, and the risk will be less. So the risk assessment varies depending on where you are and what project you're doing.
I think it should be written down in some sort of policy to say we have worked out our maximum exposure at any one time is say £250,000, and that's why we need 5 months worth of reserves, and it's based on this. I think otherwise it's just say, well, we're choosing a random number, not a random number.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah.
So I'll look at reducing a reserves policy.
And the other thing as well is, I think, for me anyway, there seems to be kind of constant confusion between general reserves, which are unlikely to be needed, they're the emergency funds really, and earmarked reserves. So there's lots of talk about we should build up general reserve to allow us to do projects in the future. In my opinion, that is not the correct use of reserves at all. The electorate should be aware of what we're saving up for. So if we want to save up for building projects, green spaces projects, we should define that in policy and put that into an earmarked reserve, rather than basically sticking all the money on the mattress to decide how we like, because that's not the democratic way to do it. I don't think it doesn't give people proper accountability. Even if money does get varied around later, when we're setting our budget, we should be saying, we're putting this amount aside for a future capital project, not we're just putting it into general reserves to decide later.
Yeah.
And there seems to be quite a lot of confusion about that, so I'd like that cleared up in my opinion. That's the way I might be wrong about how you're meant to.
I'm not sure how much I cleared that up for you.
Well, I'm just saying, as council decides though, you know, at what it sets the reserve at, there's lots of things we need a higher
Yeah,
reserve.
so okay.
So we need a high reserve
Right.
in case we've got future projects. I don't think that's correct.
This is a revenue budget,
revenue
okay?
expenditure, revenue expenditure.
Yeah, in-year expenditure budget.
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay? So the general reserve is important. Now you could do, if you had some earmarked reserve, say you had £100,000 for play equipment or van, yeah? You could, say the normal cost was £600,000, yeah? And your general reserve was 214, and in earmarked you had £100,000, and next year you wanted to buy a van, you transfer from the earmarked reserve 30,000 to the revenue account to increase the general reserve to afford it that year. Then you supplement it. Or you could do the other way around. So if you agree that 214,000 is a good figure, at the end of the year it comes to 270, you meet and go, what are we going to do with this? Yeah? And you might say, let's chuck it into safe for the van, upgrade play equipment, but not until you get it do you know. Yeah? But this is a revenue budget. Okay? What you choose to do, which is quite admirable that I've seen, is you have a balanced budget, you don't borrow off your reserves, okay? Which is always a good starting point. But the earmarked reserve, you can dip into that to balance it out, because you don't want to spend £100,000 projects in 1 year and put the precepts up by 30% and down by 20%. So this is a revenue budget, so I think, and as you haven't got any earmarked reserves, because you're going to spend it on the town hall, at the moment, the earmarked reserve is almost irrelevant, okay? So the budget should be looking to what things are you going to spend, how much does that cost, how do we fund it? And your first thing is let's fund it all through the precept because they're all revenue costs because it happened that year, yeah? If it's something's happened over a couple of years, you say we've got any earmarked reserve, we'll borrow a bit of that to supplement it this year, okay? Yeah?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Can I just ask then, if we can I just look at the income and where we've got in the budget 24-25, about £5,000 rent receivable, what that is and why it's
That, hold on, just let me write down this note. The 5,000 in the income for this year was from the community trust for the town hall, and obviously the town hall isn't open, so the community trust haven't been in, so we haven't had the 5,000.
Right.
I could have put that simpler.
And yet we still give them the community trust their funding.
Yes, we had it beginning of the year in April.
Yeah.
Is there a reason why we haven't got 5,000 in income for the 25-26 though? Because there is an agreement, isn't there?
Because I haven't put it in because we need to decide what happens with the town hall.
So,
And 5,000 might not be 5,000, it may be 10, 12. You need a discussion, this is probably Lee's and I'm probably stepping on his toes, we need a discussion on what happens with the town hall, who goes in, whether they don't go in, whether they do go in, and what you would like to charge them. So we've discounted that for the moment because we need that discussion first.
Whilst I appreciate we need that discussion, there is still an agreement in place for that.
Well, there isn't actually, is there? Because at the moment we haven't handed the town hall over to the community trust.
No,
And
there's no lease, there's no agreement for them to go in yet.
And we still need to have an agreement about whether we do that in the first
What I've
place.
seen is a draft then, is it?
We bought a lease several months ago, and a proper legal lease was brought to the town council. It wasn't liked. It went back to the solicitors, and then it must have been February, March, because Katie was still here, and then Katie left, and then it stopped. But so the community trust don't have an agreement in place at the moment.
Thank you.
So that leaves looking into. Does it?
It does, and I'll firmly keep my town council hat on, but I'll remind the town council that it has resolved to transfer the ownership of the town hall to the town trust.
Sorry.
It's resolved, it's minuted, it's resolved, it cannot be revoked.
After phase 2,
It
Yeah.
didn't say specifically after phase 2.
it does this.
No, it didn't. So if you were to read the actual agenda item that was voted on and the minuted resolution, now the reason I'm saying this as a town councillor is I have lots of examples of town councils making mistakes here and getting into serious amounts of trouble. So the town council must proceed very, very carefully if it wishes to renege on an agreement it has resolved with the charity. So I would say because the council's resolved something, that is the position, and the council wants to change it, it will have to take advice.
What I would say is the council can resolve what it likes in a meeting, okay? But any agreement of that requires a lease to be signed, and also and the lease is the binding document.
Well, not a lease, it's a transfer, isn't it? So if I give you
No.
gift,
So at the last meeting, I think he said we didn't know whether the lease is Kate found it. I need to look into that and understand what the legal position is.
but this isn't.
Whether it's a sitting tenant.
Well, that's the lease for use rather than the asset transfer, which goes.
Just a clarification, because this is actually an asset transfer. And the thing is as well, is the charity put a lot of money, give a lot of money to the council.
Sorry, now you're speaking on behalf of a charity.
Yeah.
I'm not speaking on behalf of the council, so that's why the council has to be very careful, because if the council were seen to be reneging on an agreement it made, it gave a gift which was received, to take that gift back, I think it would probably get us trouble.
I would be asking the question, if it was gifted to somebody else, why am I managing property at £1.5 million?
People can be benevolent
The- the-
any way they
the-
like.
The
Why
town,
am I doing, why is
the
this
town
managed
hall,
statement?
Yeah,
the
but that's-
town hall, although it was resolved, it was never actually done legally.
The resolution is made, so you have to undo the resolution. That's
No.
the point.
And at what cost? So when they say, we say we want £100,000 a year for it, and they say we'll give you £1.
Well, I can't give that a bit actually, but I think
Sorry,
what would have to
yeah.
happen.
So I think we need to argue
Yeah, I need to move on to detail. I need to find some fact
I
finding.
do think you'd have to refer that to the Charity Commissioner.
Yeah, well, but
I'd love to refer it to the Charity Commission because I think you'll find that there's a lot of issues in this arrangement with the trust, and I think you'll find the Charities Commission they've already started looking at the relationship between trusts and councils.
Yeah.
But that's a subject for another day.
it is, yeah, it doesn't have an impact on the budget, which is, yeah, it just arose as that,
So I-
as that figure then.
So anyway, going back to the original rent,
£5,000.
£5,000, I haven't put it in because we don't quite know. I can put it in
At risk.
at risk because there's no lease, there's no agreement, and if I put it in, someone will say, well, where's that 5,000? And you may not get that 5,000.
Yeah, like this year in fact.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because the building isn't finished yet, is it?
So if we get it, it's a bonus.
Okay.
But we would hope, as we move into sort of February, then to March, when we expect that the building might be finished, then it would be generating.
Well, we
So-
need,
somehow
we
to
actually,
generate some income.
Lee and I need to actually together, we need to actually get the lease probably.
But so there isn't
You need to understand this. You need to understand the legal implications of it. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So anything else on income that anybody wants to? Cheryl?
Yeah, I know the reason why you probably haven't put this in, but I noticed further down we're talking about maybe spending money on play equipment. But if you look at our income over the last couple of years, we tend to get in about £30,000 with the SIL. Now I know the SIL goes into an earmark reserve because it's obviously got to be committed. But at the moment, and I did raise this point last year actually, and it's partly based on something that Gordon's also mentioned. It's like, if we're going to spend money on capital projects in the budget, we have to make sure that we're potentially identifying earmark reserves for those, rather than saying this is part of general revenue expenditure, and therefore because we need this money to spend, we're going to then raise the precept. I don't know what council would prefer, whether they would like to see some still income in there on the proviso that it
Well, we
would
had-
then go into earmark reserves for
We
council
had
projects.
we had that conversation this afternoon, and Lee said, "Can you put still money in?" And I said, "Yes and no, because I've only been here 18 months. I don't know what's coming in on. I don't know what."
We haven't got historic knowledge about the development.
I've
But
got-
what I can say to you is, why don't we simply say that there's a question about still income, should we include it? Could I, over the next 2 months, get an estimate of what it might be from the Baines officers? I can ask. Yeah? And we're not going to decide the budget tonight, so rather than say, put a figure in here, ask me to review that figure and see if there's a likelihood of some still that might be in a similar magnitude of... Now,
Because
and so I'll ask the exam question that people know the answer and see what we get back.
Yeah, but the trouble is that there isn't,
Yeah.
there's the SIL you're entitled to and there's the SIL that you request for certain projects.
Yeah.
There's not one mechanism,
Yeah.
and entitlement is probably low at the moment because we don't have anything going on that gives an entitlement SIL. So it's all going to be down to a bid process, pretty
I
much.
do know there's 2 or 3 planning developments coming in. They're in Somerset because they're literally just over your border.
Well, let's not worry about it. We don't know the answer.
No,
Okay. We know there's potential. Why don't I ask the exam question of the people and see if we get our 15%? Yeah? Because there might be houses that are built last week and this week that they anticipate. Or if there's been no build in the last 12 months, it'll be 0, won't it? Okay? If there's been some, there might be some.
And,
Yeah.
and to take Sean's point about the silver bid for, I would expect that to be a different line entry, a bit like grant income, because that is, as you say, you
if
have
that's
to
the
bid,
way, yeah.
you have
Yeah.
to bid for it.
If that's how we decide to,
Yeah.
it would
Yeah.
make sense to do it like that.
Yeah, that line there is for the 15%, not the what do you call it, the strategic, the local fund, isn't it? Strategic, local, and then the parish bit, isn't it? Yeah.
One more question.
Yeah.
There's an item saying that the money from Welton Rovers gets paid to the recreational trust.
Yes.
Which I know less about. But then it gets transferred to the town council.
Yes,
Why doesn't it say the recreational trust?
because it's in the covenant that the recreational trust given to the town council.
It is. Right,
But
okay.
we haven't had it this year, again, because the recreational trust got in a mess. No one's really looked at it. They've just got bank access today.
Right.
And then we need to add some councillors on. It's taken months and months to sort it out. So
Okay.
we might get that 3,000 for this year by March.
Okay.
But so that's why, again,
Right.
But yeah,
Okay.
I don't know why it says in the documents it goes to the Recreation Trust and then they pay it to us. I don't know.
Well, who does all the admin for it?
We do.
Right. That might be why.
But no, it's in the it's in the details.
No, but
yeah.
you know, if they have their own clerk and maintenance people, then maybe. But we do work there, don't we? The
Yeah.
council seems it's a management fee, isn't it?
Yeah. But we could give them our bank account next year.
But we need to set that up. We're just going back. We just today got access to the bank account, haven't we?
Yeah.
Just before we move on, can I just clarify that about the SIL money and the capital expenditure that you were suggesting that the capital expenditure such as replenishing and replacing the play equipment on West Clewes?
I've just put that figure in.
Yes.
I put it in last. I put it in last.
Yes, it could.
Yeah, I put it in last year and you took it out.
Yeah.
I put it in because it is wooden. It's coming to the end. Wooden equipment has a year, 10 to 12 year life. You're in about year 8 or 9. We are spending more and more money on it, so within the next 2 years it will need to cost.
Okay.
One more on income, please, Chair.
Yes.
Yeah, interest received. So going back to the fact that we get a precept in twice a year and that, you know, I'm assuming we don't keep all the money in the current bank account. We must be keeping quite a bit in the presumably public sector deposit or another savings account. But we put no interest in the budget for 25-26.
No, because again, I couldn't work it out because I don't know what your precept is going to be, and you're going to have minimum funds in there the 1st of April. So I can do. You can put a figure in, but I can't work it out at the moment.
What I'll suggest is that so on the scenario I gave you about the balance about being £600,000 or £500,000 in April. Yeah, we're not spending it all straight away. So I would imagine we'd have at least £1,000 deposit. It might earn us £4. Yeah? The likelihood of about £100,000 might earn us £400. Actually, that'd be 4,000.
But at the moment, the precept goes into your Unity bank account. It doesn't go into the CCLA.
No, but this
Okay.
is the accounts, not the bank accounts, isn't it? We're not splitting it, so it doesn't matter which bank account goes to, it's into the accounts. So I think there is some real opportunity to expect some form of interest during the year. What we'll do...
I would hope so, because I hope we're not just keeping everything in a current bank account.
No, at the
moment there's £700,000 in CCLA, earns us about £3,500 a month.
Well, we're not going to spend that all by the 1st of April, are we?
Yeah, most of it.
Most of it. Okay, but then what happens when the precept comes in on the 1st of April?
That's what I said, the precept goes into the Unity. We can transfer it, but the Unity is set, precept is set to go into the Unity.
Well, what we probably do in March, we run the bank account quite low, so instead of taking it out and putting it from the CCLA, and just leaving it in the CCLA, knowing that the precept will top it up in April.
And also, so you only get half of it. So you get the first on the 1st of October, the first on the 2nd of October. This year, 1st of October, that's why we had to transfer 100,000 because the bank account was very low.
Okay.
So we needed that precept. So if we transferred it into the CCLA, if it had gone into the CCLA, we would have immediately transferred it straight out again.
Can I say, why don't I just refine the calculation there and an estimate and give you a figure? It'll be on a cautious side, but there'll be at least £1. It should be zero. Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not particularly, particularly when it comes to the income, I'm not overly keen on putting some guesswork in income numbers. If they come in, we'll benefit from them. I'm just cautious about putting in numbers that we can't verify.
No, but if you've got a warm feeling there'll be some interest, okay, then you should have a less cold feeling about low general reserve. They need to be...
Well, if you've had some in the past, we've not got a figure for this year.
No. And also, you get quite a lot because there's a lot in there. But you're getting 3,000 to 4,000 a month this year because there's so much in there. By the end of March, it will be down quite considerably.
But even if it was £100,000, that would only £4,000 in a year. Yeah.
Which is
well, no, before with a tax base of 4,000 residents, £4,000. Yeah. If you had that, it would reduce the precept by 1%. Yeah. So every it's actually 5,000, 4,500 council tax base. So every £4,500 is about 1% increase in the precept.
To my mind, if we don't actually realistically assess potential income sources, and interest is one of them because we know that there is stuff going on, but if we don't put that in the budget, then that means that we're looking at potentially a higher precept and actually, or reducing the number of projects that we do. And I think that what we should be doing is having a realistic approach to some of the income that we can get in. Because the other thing that we've got is we've put in miscellaneous income, £10,000, and I think that's about potentially a locality grant. Now, I would argue that's not income, that's a grant. Miscellaneous income implies that you can spend it on anything, whereas if we get a grant, it's got to be spent on something specific. And also, obviously, a grant is a bit more risky because you don't know if you're going to get it or not. Whereas if you know you've got a certain amount of money as part of your cash flow projections through the year and your expenditure, and so you know there's going to be some money sitting in the account, we can at least attribute some of that as interest to offset the precept and the budget. And I think that we have a responsibility to do that.
But it depends how much it's going to offset, how much realistically it's going to offset the precept by. I mean, I don't think a couple of £1,000 interest is going to provide much of an offset on the precept.
If you're going to take every single individual circumstance, that's 2,000 here, 500 there, 100 here, or whatever on every one of these line items, then suddenly, that could amount to quite a lot of money at the end.
Well, I certainly with the civil, I think if the estimate you come back with is a significant figure,
Yeah.
and it's relatively reliable.
And so if they come back and say we think you might get 7,000, we might put 3,000 in just to be cautious, mightn't we, at a budget level. But but 3,000 is a significant figure compared to 0, isn't it? Yeah. And I think with the interest, I mean, I need to go and work out what our cash flow might be. Yeah. Noting that risk with the town hall about when the expenditure is. Okay. If you look at the town hall, there's £75,000 of retention in next year's budget. Okay, so 2.5% of that gets paid on completion of the project. So let's say it gets, by the time it's done and they give us an invoice and the under-snagging is April. Yeah? If we pay 2.5% of retention, which would be £37,500. That means the next £37,500 that we've actually got in the bank, we haven't got paid for a year. So it's £37,000 there you can have interest on. Yeah, just that one item alone. Yeah. So let me make an estimate on what the interest might be. And if it's £500, it's neither here nor there. If it's 7 or 8, it might be something that gets you to do something else, or might make you feel more confident about the general reserve. Let me produce something with some assumptions so you know where those come from about what that figure might be. Yeah? I mean, all you need is interest rates to drop down to 2% and suddenly it's all at the window. So there's a real cautious approach to that, I get you. But I don't think it's going to be 0. Yeah?
Oh, sure, there'll be a positive number.
Yeah.
But
My point is, we've got a bit of time to do this because the deadline isn't January now for the budget. Does that make sense?
yeah.
So we can refine lots of things. So I
Well,
really do
it
that.
looks like some of the expenditure is dependent or contingent on some money coming in. So for
Yeah, well, you see with the NDP, I put it in on the assumption we get it. So if we don't get it, we don't do the NDP currently, or you have to go out of the general, you dip into general reserve. I'm just showing there's a way to do it that might be workable. I mean, I've only got 10,000 accounts to £112,000. There's more to NDP than that, but it gets you started, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I think the council are quite keen to do NDP, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
So that's why we
I'll agree on that.
yes.
yeah.
Anything else on income? No, should we look at expenditure, central services? Does anyone's anything sound? Wages, national insurance, pension, the payroll, training has increased. It's a similar figure to the previous years, isn't it?
What I would say is the training conferences is partly because you're recruiting a new town clerk, there might be some in there. We had a staffing committee meeting about the courses for the ground maintenance staff, the health and safety bits and pieces. So it wasn't a wild guess, but we picked a number of courses that were likely and got a rough feel for those.
But we've also got training elsewhere.
Yeah,
There's
there's
the same cost code,
so-
and we've
so-
got several of these cost codes that appear multiple times
Yeah.
throughout the budget.
So
I think it'd be really helpful because
cost code 1 is central services, which is all the office staff. So that's the training for the office staff and maybe your new clerk after that. The training 101, training and conferences, is the training for the councillors. So that's your training budget, which is 2,000, and then 204 training, 2,500 is for your town wardens.
thank you. Yeah, I'm aware of that. I'm just questioning why they're all under the same nominal code. It would be easier if they're training for different purposes. That if we had a different nominal code for grounds maintenance training, a different nominal code for councillors, and then a different nominal code there, because sometimes when there's narrative going on, it's difficult to understand which is being
Yeah, the reason you do that in the accounting system is, you imagine you had 15 buildings, yeah, and you have gas and lecky in each of them. You'd actually break the gas and lecky down to each of the 15 buildings because you want to know what the operating costs of that building are. But if you've got to ask the question of how much you spend on gas and electricity, what's the kilowatt hours, you then group them together. So the different cost centres have same titles, so you then groups. Yeah, so I can grab all the staff wages out of the same accounting codes, 4001, wherever they fall. And if you had lots of different services, you can say, what's the overall cost of staff? Okay, but then you need to split it out sometimes to say, what's the cost of that area of business? So to get like-minded items, they do have the same nominal ledger code under different cost centres. Does that make sense?
That does make sense.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good. Continuing down there, we've got the new rent figures that, for the summer centre for the council offices. That's that one there, isn't it?
So
Yeah.
we're
413.
we're initially going in the same centre, and that's we're going to be paying £900 a month for the same centre. And obviously, if again this is the big question, if we go in the town hall and the community trust, if the town council go to the community trust, we would then be subletting off the community trust, so we would then have to pay the rent for the town hall. So you need 12 months.
The best estimate we can make is what we're going to be doing in January, February, March, April, May next year, and rolling that through for the rest of the year, i.e. the service centre. Yeah, it might change after that.
So
The budgeting figure of 10,800, or what is it? Yeah, is 12 lots of £900. It might go to a different building than the service centre, or it might do. So that's how we got to that figure. Yeah.
Okay. Any other points going down?
was there money put aside for the Somerset needs a little bit of work for the council to move in?
Oh no, we've got that in this year's predicted spend. So part of our predicted spend. So I think we've had the general reserve fluctuate from about 150 to 250 over the
And
last
up
week.
and down, it fluctuates.
Oh.
Every time we get an invoice, then it fluctuates.
So we've included that in the predicted spend of this year.
We've included 6,000 for the removal. It's not going to be that high
Yeah.
because the removal is 500. To move the IT is about 1,500. Just had a quote in today because we need new power, new sockets. That's 750. So it's
And the phone line removal.
we need
so
a phone. We need a new phone line. That's going in. So that's going to be around about 2.5, 3.
We'll need some tables.
We
But
will
we'll
need
be
some
moving
testing
in the first week of December, second week of December. And I think by the end of December we'll know what those costs really are. So we'll make an adjustment then.
I mean, I just hope that the building is suitable for, not maybe forever, but certainly
So there's
not
more.
just a super short term.
Yeah, so Colin is moving out, so we're having both those 2 rooms where there is only 1 socket in Colin's room, 2 sockets in the solar centre. So we're putting in in the community room, we're putting in quite a lot because the IT people said, think of a number you need, double it, because you always need more sockets.
Was that on their quote?
Huh?
Was that on their quote?
So we're putting, so there's 4 altogether. There'll be 4 in the office, 4 double sockets in the office, and 8 double sockets in the community room.
Okay. Cheryl, you had a question?
Yeah, so going back to wages and salaries. So obviously we just had the budget putting up national insurance to 50%. And from what I understand, our pension contributions are maintained the same over 3 years at 20.5% employers' contribution. I'm just looking at those 2 figures. If you look at the wages and salaries that are stated as 117, if you take 15% of that for NIC and then 20% for pension, I would have expected a wider discrepancy between the difference between those 2 figures. So I just wanted to understand how they're calculated.
I'm going to recalculate. I've got some figures off Joe today. I will be recalculating them.
Yeah. At a quick glance, so we've done last week. The fixed cost, now that we know what those costs are because the pay rises come in. The figures aren't too different across the 2 cost centres, but the breakdown into lines is wrong. Okay, so you're quite right. At £117,000, 25% of that would be 25, 27 and a half, isn't it? 27 and a half, so something should be 27 and a half, but 15% isn't 24. And if you look at the corresponding line entry under environmental maintenance, that's wrong. But together they're about right. We just make the split wrong, but we're going to correct that to get the split correct, because you want to say what the admin staff cost us and what the town hall staff. I mean, currently I think in some of the pension payments, because we get one pension payment, yeah, on occasion we put in them all into one, costs are not split between the two, town warden and the group staff, but the whole bill's the same, it's just gone in, so we're just going to tidy that up to get the correct breakdown, but the overall sum is about the same, give or take £2,000 or £3,000 on a bill of 215,000. Is acceptable margin of error, I thought. So we'll review those. And, yeah.
Okay, where are we down to then? IT hardware pension deficit. Equipment
Yeah, I've
lease.
got one on those.
We want that, can't we? Yeah, speak on
So,
that.
hang on a minute, so where are we? What nominal code is pension deficit?
4028.
4028. So I wanted to just go back to subscriptions, please, 4024.
All right.
So we've got a projected expenditure for the end of this year of 4,134 against a budget of 2,200. And then we're putting in a budget next year for 25-26 of 3,720. Now, in that, we've included for WorkNest. And I'm not sure whether WorkNest is really a subscription. It's a bit more like a fee for service in much the same way as we pay for Rialtus. WorkNest is part of our employment advice that we get and so on.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering whether perhaps we should consider taking it out of there, because I think it's I'd be quite concerned to say that whilst yes, anything that the council decides to spend its money on is up to the decision of the council, I think that if we just suddenly say, oh yeah, let's scrap all subscriptions without realising what was in it, I think that should perhaps receive a different
I can put it under legal and professional.
Well,
It is professional fees, isn't it, for employment advice?
Yeah.
So that was just a point there. It just worries me because I've seen council actually say, oh well, we're going to make some savings this year. We'll stop our alcohol subscription.
Yeah, and because it's not identified, you don't realise something in it.
You don't know what it is.
We can break that up, can't we?
Yeah, I've made a note of
Thank
that.
We'll break the WorkNest out of there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then moving on to the pension deficit, my understanding is that next year, from the actuarial report, it's 10,200 for 25-26, and we put in a budget of 9,684. Now, I know that if we pay up front, we can get a discounted rate, but I'm just wondering, because I think in the notes it says we're going to pay by monthly direct debit, so
They always have, they all,
10,200 is what the actuaries are expecting, and Avon Pension Fund is expecting us to pay.
When was the last actuarial review? Last year?
The actuarial review was done in 2022 for the next 3 years. The next one's due out in
Next year?
next year. Yeah. So this is the final year of the three, and that's why they've set our pension contributions at 20.5% each year for 3 years.
Yeah. But we're currently only
So this year it was 9,700.
Oh, okay. They didn't do. I mean, I haven't seen it. So they didn't do a flat fee for each of the 3 years of the actuarial
No,
review.
normally it's the same.
Okay. Okay. So we'll check that. So what line number was that? 40?
4028.
Yeah.
So just going back up from there to the insurance line, 12,000. What exactly are we covering on it in that insurance?
Insurance is building insurance, content insurance, public liability insurance, employer insurance,
Okay, and my question would be then, how much of that's,
cyber security insurance.
how much of that is our responsibility and how much is the trust responsibility? Because
No, we have the
Oh, no, there's an extra bit this year, isn't there? In that insurance, have you included the building insurance during construction?
no the construction insurance for the town hall is
In the town hall
in
project
the, is in
line.
the town hall
Okay.
project
So I'm not
line.
about construction insurance, I'm just talking about the...
Well, it should do. It costs you £5,000.
Well, yeah, but
Yeah.
if we're paying buildings,
so
contents,
we only-
public liability,
We only cover the town hall,
okay.
all the other buildings.
And all that, and if we do end up going into a lease agreements with the trust, then obviously that's got to be renegotiated.
We would probably still need some insurance on the town hall because it would be.
Yeah, I
inside.
appreciate
Yeah.
that.
But that affects the price, doesn't it? So if it's
But
full
again,
repair, a full repairing lease, then we wouldn't be.
Oh, I think that the whole thing needs to be
Yeah.
looked at.
Yeah.
And
But if we were paying for it, then that would reflect the rent would be challenging, wouldn't it? So it's,
Yeah.
you've got to have over to you, all the bills are yours.
Absolutely, I'm just trying to clarify exactly what that 12,000 covers, but as I say, but if we get to that point, if we do decide to provide a lease to them,
it
then
let
we need to,
it leapt to 15,000 when I first started because the previous clerk did it and they included all the buildings. In that was the Orchard Hall, the Soma Centre. I took them all out because they're not yours. We took them all out and the town trust now have their own insurance.
okay, thank you.
We'll review it, and that,
Yeah, that's fine, that's
that's
clarified
good.
everything I need to
Yeah.
know.
And when the insurance, trouble is with insurance, they won't quote until a month out. So it ends the end of March, so February they will contact me with a new list and I just will go through it and say yes, yes, no, we'll amend figures.
No,
That's good then.
Because you've clarified everything I need to know.
Thank you. Anything else on there? So we've got, of course, pension deficit, equipment maintenance, furniture, property maintenance, bank charges, van allowance. Did I see on the, we spent £6? Is that right?
We've moved the van allowance because there is no van allowance on section 1.
Yeah, I think that the £6 would have been a miscoding of
It's
something
miscoding.
plus.
So we had it on for last year, did we? We budgeted
The va-
5,000 last year.
Yes, but because I've moved it down because it was in the wrong cost code. So the van allowance is under central services, it should be under town and
Right, moved. Right, okay.
It's different, so it's still there, but it's on a different cost centre.
Okay.
We should say that transfers.
So that we put 5,000 in, I'm assuming that was our contribution to start building an earmark reserve, is it? So therefore, presumably, we're going to spend that money this year in terms of spending it into earmark reserves. So shouldn't that be in our projected expenditure for this year somewhere?
You can do. Change the amount reserve?
Well, I think there's the whole discussion about what we need to do about the van before you get to the, I mean...
No, I think the point is we told the public we would budget for it,
Hmm.
and it should go into an envelope that says van.
That's,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
therefore,
If you want to change your mind, you can do, but it needs to be a conscious decision, not a subconscious decision, I think.
Yeah.
That's what you're trying to say.
yeah, because if you say you're going to, if you put money in the budget and you say this is because, and whether it's a van or play areas or whatever, you're saying we're going to set aside this amount of money in this budget from this precept to build our earmark reserves for this, and then when you put your projected expenditure for the end of the year, you have to spend it into earmark reserves.
Yeah.
And we haven't, we're actually showing that we're not spending it at all. So there should be 5,000, because that's going to affect our level of general reserves at the end of this year.
Trouble is, it has been spent on the town hall.
Hmm.
'Cause
Yeah,
you're-
but no, you haven't, because if we budgeted for it,
but if I
we budgeted that £5,000 spent.
if I wired money around, it would have gone.
But you
Because
can't,
you're 800,000 over budget this
you
year.
can't say you spent the van allowance on the town hall. The van allowance hasn't been spent.
No.
And when it was when it was decided to do that, it was just before the last election. The idea was the van cost £7,500. We didn't know if it was a risk or not, and we said, and the council at the time said, let's put 5,000 aside towards the new van just in case it breaks instantly. That hasn't happened, so the council may decide that actually 5,000 is a little bit generous for a yearly allowance for the van. It might think actually half of that would be enough to put away every single year for a van. On the basis you could buy a new van every 4 years, or a replacement van every 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, we could put a figure in there. That's going to put the obviously the predicted spend, that's going to take £5,000 for general reserve, 214 takes down to 29. Yeah? But,
We're playing, I mean,
we're
I think, okay, we're up to it. I mean, we're just treading water financially, and we're, yeah, if you want to move it, move it.
But that does allow us some money in the earmark reserve next year to offset next year. So it pays it back. We're just
developing.
Or if the council wants to, it can actually make a decision when it sets the budget as part of the recommendations that we're not going to move that 5,000 into our reserves
Yeah.
this year. So we can still make that decision. So the point is that the decision hasn't been made yet, therefore it should appear in the projections.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a fair comment. I mean, but as I say, there's a wider discussion in this budget. You need to get around the whole van issue anyway. So
Yeah. Okay. That's right, so that would go for that. Legal fees, audit fees. So on line 4056, 4057. You've got your hand up, Cheryl.
Next one, 4058 accounts.
4058 accounts, okay.
Yeah, so I mentioned Rialtas, we've got Rialtas put into this budget, and yet we've got a projected of 868, even though Rialtas support costs 2,348, and an additional £900 for a consultant, who I believe we did pay some money for them last year. Just pointing it out because my concern is that there must be some money for Rialtas in a different cost code somewhere, and I just want to make sure that we're not double counting. Because as you said, Sean, we are running tight to the wire, and it's really important that we know that we're not double counting, so that everything that goes into reserves we know is there, and we're getting the maximum into reserves to impact. And that's why I'm questioning this.
You're not double counting Rialtas. This year it went into IT and hardware, so in this year it's in the IT.
Right, okay.
This year,
That's
this
fine.
year's figures, it's in IT
so we should really journal that across
and
now.
hardware figure, and I did pick it up, and yeah, so we could do a journal to accountancy support. But there was no budget last year for accountancy support, so it will throw that.
Yeah, no, that's fine, that's fine.
Okay.
But it hasn't been double counted in the next.
Good, thank you.
Right. So then that's next.
So next year it will go under accountancy support. And the 900, I've put that as an addition because I'm getting confused now. The end of last year, Rialta shut it down for me because I've never done it before. I would like them to do it again because that would only be my
wholeheartedly support you in that.
Oh, absolutely.
Anybody should have to shut down Rialtas on their own.
yeah. So
You get them in, they'll close in half a day, in a day
Yeah,
for you.
exactly.
Otherwise it's 3 weeks for you. Yeah.
so but that's an
So
extra
it's
cost
40.
of £900.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, towards the end, legal and professional
Oh,
fees.
sorry, can I just ask another question on that then? We normally, or I don't know whether we do we get someone to do the VAT analysis to make sure that we're still within our limits to be able to reclaim VAT? Because I know that one of the companies offers that, yeah, so do we need to budget for that, especially with project costs coming up and things?
No, we haven't budgeted for it.
What Cheryl's talking about is about business use of claiming back VAT. So there's a threshold of £35,000 for non-business activity we can reclaim. So the council can only claim VAT back on its business activity. So if you have, as in the past, a community hall, yeah, a town hall, and you run the town council meetings and the offices are there, but half the building is used for community stuff to be rent out, only half the building is for business use. The other bit's commercial activity, isn't it? I mean, it might be subsidised commercial, but it's commercial activity. So if you then go and replace the roof on the building, yeah, and it costs you £100,000, 50% of that cost is to the commercial activity and 50% is to the business, isn't it?
Yeah.
The threshold for so HMRC says if you spend below £35,000, So you can claim £7,500 VAT on non-business services, which is £35,000, 20%. Yeah. But if you claim a lot back, you sometimes need to prove it, and so somebody can run an assessment for you and say, well, actually, it's easy with the whole, isn't it? You go, how often is it used? Well, it's used for weddings 4 times a year. It's used for council meetings 27 times a year, and the staff are in there, so it's a 90-10 split or whatever. Something it's quite easy. But those things only cost, I don't know, 1,200 quid.
Less than that, I think.
Depends.
Yeah, depends on your level.
Okay, but that's a good point. But I think you put in a cost there that you could probably accommodate. Yeah, there's something you don't do. Yeah. Because as soon as you break that £35,000 threshold, you lose all the entitlement. So if you spend £34,999 on non-business activity, you get £7,500. As soon as you spend £35,000, you lose that £7,500. So if you're doing something like that, what you've got to do is get VAT advice spread over 2 years, 2 different financial years. So a £70,000 project, do a bit in March and a bit in April. Yeah. So, yeah. It's just something to be aware of that it exists. The VAT man won't shoot you the first time you make it wrong, but the first time you do it wrong, he'll come back and check you.
Well, we reclaimed VAT on everything.
Yeah.
So, and we had this from the VAT man report because it meant quite a sizable amount of money we claimed every quarter, about £20,000.
Yeah. But room hire, just to hiring a room is not battable. Yeah, but hiring a room with a sink is. A room with a wedding license is, because you've increased the utility of that building. Yeah. So there are some complicated rules around VAT, which one we're ready to have.
Okay, so does that wrap up central services? We're happy with that. We can go on to the democratic process. We talked about the training budget being for councillors, travel, subsistence, publicity, hiring meeting rooms, media and communication. Everyone happy with that? Civic support, mayor's allowance, no civic expenses.
Do we spend anything on civic expenses this year? Okay.
No, I don't know. No. Because
Where do we buy the wreath for Remembrance Sunday from?
that comes under, it has its own cost code.
Okay.
Remembrance.
Oh, we actually,
4225.
okay, we put it in there.
Okay.
Civic expenses to me, so we put it in last year because you had it the year before. Civic expenses to me is your civic award ceremony, which has its own line. So that's why I haven't put it in there, because you have a civic award ceremony which you're now doing in May, so it's going to come into next year. That's just my way of thinking, because you haven't actually touched it for 2 years.
It's a separate line from mayor's allowances.
Yeah.
And that's not been touched either.
No.
We have
But you're entitled to it.
well, we have to keep it in case some people are in a position who feel they need to use it, and some people aren't. So that's why I think it's important to be there in case people wish to.
Well, I think it would be a reasonable thing to have £250 for the mayor's allowance, because you probably buy a fair few Christmas cards to people, won't you? And
Well, I think personally, if it's not spent, it should probably go into new art, which might have to find the rules on there.
Repair, tunes or something. Okay.
Maybe short for those.
So capital projects. So yeah, there's just the loan charges, that refurbishment, the dirt area, retention that Lee talked about, the neighbourhood plan contingent on getting a grant. So that's that. Then there's
Can I just... Yeah, so what we can see here is we've got capital projects for each of these things, and obviously we'd be looking at potentially to use SIL or MR reserves or whatever in terms of offsetting those expenditures. So given that we've got the 10,000 for the play areas, could we not put that in as a capital project, please? So that it doesn't get lost elsewhere.
where have we got it? Got it in maintenance, haven't we?
Yeah.
Isn't it maintenance, the play park?
Yeah. It's down as furniture and equipment. It's down under West Clears because it is West Clears.
Oh, okay. Is it, where is it? Yeah.
down here.
4036.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can still be 4036. It can still be 4036, but be 4036 199.
Sorry, remind me. Councillor Scott, so you said in which line?
No,
is
we've
it?
We've got £10,000.
Need a new line, no, it'd have to be a new line completely.
Oh, you're saying to move that into capital
I'm
projects?
saying that, yeah, because actually what you're saying there is it's part of revenue, and yeah, you could ideally be, if you're looking at repairs and maintenance of play areas, then that's fine, but if we're looking at setting aside 10,000 to actually replace something, then arguably that could be deemed a capital project, which we could use, for instance, SIL for, or apply for a grant for, or something like that. So if we, seeing as we've got these columns of CPs, it would make sense to put it in there as a CP.
Yeah.
It may be a different number, but.
Well, we just create a new nominal code for it.
Well, no.
To be honest, there aren't that many nominal codes because when this was set up, there's an awful lot in there that.
No, so what we do, the nominal code exists, but it exists on a different cost centre. You just change.
No, because that's 4036 is furniture and it's furniture maintenance, and it's not. I'd have to create a new different code number. It's fine, I can do that.
Oh, I see what you mean.
It's just a suggestion,
It's fine.
because it just...
No, but
it's the public as well.
no,
understand
you could
their-
still give it this. It could be. You could still be the same title of furniture and equipment, but under capital project.
Mm. Yeah, they cover quite a few things.
Yeah.
Load of new benches. Good job we don't do that.
I took out, so as you see, there's nothing for capital projects for Town Park, Garden Friendship, St Chadwell, Wellerbrook. I took those out because the same with Valley Rediscovered are doing quite a lot on that at the moment. You will put it in that you'll need it in for next year, but at the moment it's all being funded.
We use that cost share, didn't
Are we happy with the £12,500 in the expenditure for the neighbourhood plan on the assumption it's going to be funded by a £10,000 grant we haven't applied for?
Well, you've got a couple of months to apply for it, haven't you?
Well, no, my point is, you might not apply until February, March, you might not know until April, okay? But you might be able to put out the general reserve end of the grant
we?
anyway.
Well, that was the kind of what
You might be able to,
Yeah.
or if your general reserve is down to 150, you might go, not this year, if you don't get the grant. Yeah?
So it's, that's over longer than a year,
Yeah.
12,500.
Yeah.
It won't be done in a year.
Yeah, we need to send it now, but
So
at the moment we're assuming we'll get a £10,000 locality grant, so it should be funded.
No, because you've already had 8,000 of that, haven't you?
Well, we try and look. We can.
I tried to
Okay.
look through the figures this afternoon and I couldn't actually see anything.
Good, we've been sure to leave it with us. If you're saying you think that's right, we'll have to look.
Yeah.
'Cause we can.
Yeah.
That was one of the. Oh, okay.
Okay, so we'll then move on then, if that's okay, from capital projects.
No.
No, so you've got, okay.
So 4934 Town Hall reopening. So we've got £50,000
Yeah.
in this year's budget. We
Yeah.
haven't put anything in next year's budget.
No, because
So
I
should we have 50,000 in projected for the end of 24-25 then? Because if we're going to spend it,
It is in projected.
It's
24.
in
is it? Oh
It's an
right.
unprojected spend.
Beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Okay. I just had it highlighted.
And fingers crossed, hopefully you'll be happy. It will be open by the end of March.
But if it doesn't, we just our general reserve will be £50,000 better off, and then at the beginning of the year you create a new budget to do the 2008.
Well, let's just hope that it doesn't cost £50,000.
I should have lost one, unfortunately.
It's in the projected spend for this year.
I'll donate some shares.
It has chairs.
All right, we'll leave that discussion for the time. So, community buildings, 201,
Which is the big loan.
it's a big loan, so that's
You're in the
self-explanatory.
year, you've got another 48, 49 years.
Yeah, I'll be here then. Community support 202, grants, annual. So, we've got the £3,000 that was committed a couple of years ago to Summer Valley
Radio.
FM. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
radio. So we've got another year left of that, and then budgeted the £20,000, which we did this year. Church.
Yeah, I have an issue with saying that because the town council 3 years ago said it was going to give a community organisation £3,000 a year for the next 3 years,
Yeah.
that means we then have to add on £3,000 to whatever money we set aside for grants.
Yeah.
Because the principle of it to me is that we should be taking that £3,000 from whatever amount it is we set aside for community grants. Okay, so I would have said that if we want to set a budget of 20,000, it should include that £3,000 for as part of our obligations, rather than actually. Do you see what I mean? Because otherwise we could end up with having to put 50 grand aside for grants in 3 years' time.
Yeah.
I know we've brought the policy back in line so that we can't necessarily do that anymore, but I just feel on principle that if the council said £3,000 a year for 3 years, then the 3,000 comes out of whatever it is we set aside for grants.
This is the last year. So.
Yeah, that's a good point though. So you made that 20,000,
Yes,
knowing that 3,000 is ring fenced to the radio.
exactly.
So it's £17,000 free spend.
Yeah,
Cool.
so I disagree. And so I think that some of these ongoing grants, right, there's examples, we've got quite a few examples. You could actually say in Carnival, to be honest. Right, we pay them every year. And the things what I would say though is those grants, we should, I think personally, we should budget them separately. In fact, I think we would reduce our grant budget to 17,000. I would keep them separate, so when it goes into it, it's quite clear that we've got a certain amount of what I call discretionary grants. So people come that we didn't expect with their own ideas, that hopefully might be aligned with our council policies and objectives. But with things like the radio, Carnival, I think that these are basically fulfilling council wishes. The council wants them to happen, so I think it should budget for them separately.
But you are making a rod, so as soon as you do it for one, and you say that, and we'll do it for 2 or 3 years.
Well, we have
just
separate budgets for Carnival, we have separate budgets for the town trust, we have separate budgets for the community trust. This was just one particular application for the 20,000, which is meant to be small grants to support community organisations that are discretionary.
It was a mistake to grant over 3 years.
Basically, and basically it should
Not from the small grant.
Because if it was going to grant for 3 years, then it should have been under a different cost code, I agree.
Yeah.
But therefore, I just feel that we shouldn't necessarily, given that we are running tight to the wire,
Including the 3?
we have to, we should have.
So the simple thing is 20,000 including the 3,000 or 20 plus the 3?
Including. I think Cheryl's saying including.
Yeah, I should, that's what I think you should.
I mean, can I argue later on, but what's the consensus here now for us?
But I don't think anyone's made a separate argument for, in the same way as the Carnival Association. So Carnival Association is a different thing altogether. This is a grant fund for a local charity or local project, which falls into the 20,000, as far as I can say.
And it's only for the next year, isn't it? And but then they'll make an application, we can have a different structure coming. So, so shall we just put 20,000 there, 3,000 which is already allocated? So we've got 17 to spend.
One question for you then, does that mean organisations shouldn't come forward saying, can we get funding for the next several years?
Absolutely.
So 1 year at a time?
Because your grant funding, if you're grant funding under section 137, which you are because you haven't got a local clerk, you haven't got a qualified clerk in permanent post, that the amount you can do changes by what the government say you can do. It's per elector. So as soon as you want to fund something for a period of time, you should remove it straight out of an annual grant budget, because otherwise you need to get an SLA with it. It's an agreement. Yeah, it needs to have some legal basis on which they can draw the money in, because otherwise you could, in your 4th term of this council, you could agree to give £50,000 to the Mickey Mouse Supporters Club for the next 5 years. The next administration comes in and says, can't believe they did that. Okay? And that would be irresponsible, wouldn't it? Yeah? And then you'd have to turn them into bad boys and say, well, I can't afford this, but these made us promises. Well, they made promises they couldn't keep, so it's not appropriate. So perhaps in the life of the council you might stretch it over 2 years, but it's bad practice because you'll end up stretching administrations. That's really unfair on that 4-year period. Yeah? So if somebody wants something funded for 3 years, they send us a cost balance, a business plan, and we're writing a long-term budget with a separate line. Yeah? This ad hoc grant would be generally for ceiling crisis funding. So people have new and novel ideas, the new ladies rugby team, or that charity has been running itself really well for lots of years and had an unfortunate mishap. The roof came off and an excess of £5,000. Yeah? And it's not a revenue account.
And it's a potentially competitive process, isn't
Yeah.
it? Depending upon how subscribed you are. And therefore, why should somebody who competed 3 years ago be just given, you know, a free pass 3 years later?
Because then needing 3 years' time might not be as much as the person 3 years' time who says can have some money. So you can't have money this year because we committed 3 years ago.
So does that mean that we should go back to organisations like that, and should the council wish to continue to support for things like having local radio, which is quite very beneficial to the town for lots of reasons, and the council, should we be going back to those organisations and saying we need to look at our arrangement because in future, and I'm also the council representative and outside body for the radio, so I should go back to them and say, look, you should think about a different way to seek funding, because it will probably still require help.
Yeah.
But we should say
Yeah.
the idea of a 3-year grant like that is not the best way to go about it.
Well, I mean, you would have thought that they would know that they're coming to the end of the 3-year term, and they would then make an approach to the council. We would say, well, it's not appropriate to apply.
There are hundreds of
discretionary
organisations
grant.
out there that want money off us if we give it away free.
I mean, first of all, I'd say we inherited this.
Yeah.
We didn't vote on it, this
Yeah.
current administration, we inherited it.
The council, yeah.
So it wasn't our choice to do this. And yes, I mean, we should be encouraging all these people to look at being self-financing, to go through all sorts of different grant funding and different ways of raising money through sponsorship and whatever. And we should be supportive of that. But yeah, we shouldn't be committed to a 3-year. Their objectives may change over 3 years and not be aligned with our council policies. The radio station could be taken over. It could change its complete format and not be aligned with us. So I think annual reviews is probably, for me, is the only way to go.
Yeah.
So we'll put in, I mean, it's not decided yet, but it's just a shape in the budget, isn't it? We'll put in £20,000, which includes £3,000 for the radio,
Yeah,
and see what the numbers come out.
yeah. Okay, we'll do that.
Is that okay? Yeah.
Just one other thing, because obviously this is potentially something to discuss at council as well, because obviously going back to what our projected expenditure is, so we're kind of like budgeting to spend an additional £10,000 over and above what we've spent to date, which is 8,884 between now and the end of the year. So should that be something for council? Should we make a recommendation for council consider, do you really want to blow £10,000 on grants, given we've only been subscribed to 8,800 at the moment? Perhaps we could maybe set aside £4,000 for the rest of the year.
Well, we haven't publicly advertised the grant, so haven't we? We haven't publicly advertised the grant. It's been publicly advertised.
Probably on there.
Well, what I would say is, go back to the van.
Yeah.
When you sent the budget to the public, you said £20,000 was going to be available for grant funding.
Okay.
So you're changing your mind halfway through the year. You might be able to justify it.
Well, I've just, the fact
You could do
is that if we only have one call a year, then we know what our
No, it's
expenditure is
two.
going to be. So we don't have one call a year, we have
Two.
two. Yeah, that's my question. So we've got a second call that's just been
Ten.
launched.
So
It used to be almost a monthly event, people
Yeah.
coming here asking for grants.
Yeah.
We decided to change it to 2
Okay.
to biannual events. And I think, you know, we committed to it in the last budget and this is our last one that we committed to in the current budget.
Right.
So I guess what we discussed today is what we're going to do for the next budget,
Yeah.
whether we continue that process or not in the next budget.
I think what Councillor Scott was suggesting was if we show restraint in this one, it might improve our budget
It's
this year.
just dropped down into the general reserve.
Yeah, well,
Well, the thing is that just because people apply doesn't mean that we have to issue them.
Yeah.
And we'll take them on their merits. It
Yeah.
may be that there's nothing there that actually qualifies. We may only
But no, for
issue.
consistency,
£500
if
it
we
might-
said we're going to spend
Yeah.
it, then we need to show.
So we-
that we're projecting
It has been launched. So when we did it back in July, we launched it and then we kept pushing it. It's been launched. It's just,
And we haven't had any
Right.
applications.
it's just, well, it only got launched last week.
Oh, right.
It probably won't get pushed.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
just see what
I
happens.
mean, the problem with that is you get the same old people who know it's around applying for it, don't you?
I would say, do you have to be consistent now? So
Yeah.
if you've given an award to one organisation in the first 6 months, it's very difficult to think of a reason why a second organisation
No, they
wouldn't
can't-
be a grant award
Yeah, they
if
can't-
they came up with a similar proposal.
Yeah, they can only have one grant a year.
Yeah, no,
Separate
it's not
organisations, sorry.
That's it, yeah.
Another
Like, for
scout.
instance, a football team, one
Yeah.
split.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. We next come down to
All the various other
yeah, all
grants.
the various others. So the Carnival 8,000.
We've had
Okay.
requests have come in
I don't think we can consider applications that have come in so late, to be honest
They haven't come in
with you.
late. No, this is the deadline.
No.
The deadline, we
You
don't,
don't
I
think-
mean tonight, I would want a chance to read.
Oh, yeah, no, we can't
Oh, yeah,
see
yeah,
tonight. No,
yeah.
Recommendations.
No, I mean, we sort of talked about last time an agreement to maintain, you know, the funding we've got, and I think as these organisations do, I think they're probably all asking for more.
They're all asking
So,
for more.
You know, so that would be a discussion which, in the light of what we're discussing, it doesn't, you know, seem that there's much room for manoeuvre. But I would propose we work on, you know, we want these events to continue, I think, do we? And that I think we work on that same spend, because that's what we've worked the overall budget at. So unless anybody's got any thoughts on changing any of those and reducing them or increasing them now, I think we leave them as they are for now, look at the proposals that have come in. We've still got a few months to consider that and then decide whether we agree with what they're asking and we put them up by bid, or we decide we need to take them down further. With Gordon.
Yeah, I agree. It's just the fact that we're not committing to this expenditure now.
No.
We're not awarding a grant,
No.
but we're putting on our radar that there's a likelihood that these events will
And it-
cost more to put on, just as the council costs more to run. The public obviously vastly in favour of these events, so it would be prudent to say there's probably going to be some pressure when these events happen, and there's things like the carnival, we should be, you know, I think making sure we put enough money aside to
So we have to leave those as they
so
are.
I would probably put
For
it
this
up, I'd
meeting.
probably budget more though, I'm going to
Yeah.
say.
Okay.
And I disagree with that, and the reason I disagree is because these are grants,
Yeah.
these are actually quite substantial grants that are almost like, these are the different types of grants we've been talking about, where they are very important organisations that we recognise the contribution to the community and we want to help support them, and every year they have an entry in the budget. But this is the first year where they're actually having to submit their accounts and everything else to justify that line entry in the budget, and I think that until we have had a chance to read that through, that we shouldn't actually be deciding to waiver from the amount that was set for last
No.
year until we've seen what they're presenting in terms of accounts, because otherwise then we're not doing our fiscal duty.
But you say do the budget based on those numbers.
I say the budget is based upon the numbers they had last year,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
that
that's-
they've been
that's-
asked to submit their accounts. So instead of us putting in we'll budget for it, and then 3 months down the line they then submit and say now we want our money,
Yeah.
we're actually saying to them now, if you want us to set aside money in the budget, we want you to justify it at this point, not 3 months down the
And
line.
they still need to,
And they still need to
they
provide
still,
accounts
and
everything.
they will still need to apply for it, because we've had problems with the Carnival Association where they've said, oh, it's in your budget, when are you paying?
Well,
Yeah,
no,
that's the point I'm making.
No,
is
No,
that-
but we've had those applications in.
Now the point is now you will do a fine tooth comb check of it,
Yeah.
and by putting in a budget you will then commit to it. You won't need to ask them because
Yeah.
they provided all the stuff up front.
Yeah. We have got stuff, we just haven't had
It only
to
came in
discuss
this
it.
We just haven't had a chance to
Yeah.
look at it.
Go on.
So therefore, what we do is we go to council
Yeah.
with these applications,
Yeah.
and council will look at it, and hopefully by then we'll have a bit more of an idea as to whether or not it would be prudent in light of the whole budget to consider the request for any increase in funding and what that might look like and how it might impact
Yeah.
the budget.
Yeah.
But the point is we've then done the due diligence, and so whatever we agree, that means that it's there and committed.
Yeah.
And that makes it
Justify
easier for the organisations, because then they're not having to say, oh well, will they, won't they? You know, and they've had to work out their strategies, and they know what funding they want, and they've asked us for
Yeah.
it.
Good. Yeah.
I mean, what I would say though is, kind of almost agree with all that. What I'd say is if, you know, with the due diligence and all the rest of it, if they make a very good case for the fact that their costs have increased somewhat, it might be prudent for us to budget. The other thing I would say is I wouldn't necessarily put down Carnival Association as the budget item, because it's not resolved. And it's not, they haven't even asked for it yet. I think what council should do is set aside money.
No, I've got it.
Well, the point is we should set aside money for this event, and the Carnival, unless
Just
the
call it
Carnival
Carnival.
Association come for it. The
Right,
point is,
association.
I don't think we should be bound by how much we budget for it. It's not like you could put aside 50,000, we're not going to get that. The
Yeah.
point is,
But if you budget for it, you have to pre-set for it.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that we could budget. I think the council could budget £10,000 for an illuminated carnival.
Based on what? Everything has to be evidence-based. So provide the evidence to show that it should be an increase of 20%, then we can budget for it. But there is no evidence for that.
Well, there's no evidence for a lot of these things. It's a budget,
Well,
isn't it?
No, the point is, if you put a budget line in, okay, and if you put another 10 lines of £10,000, that increases the budget by £100,000. So I have to pre-set for that. Yeah? So if we're going to pre-set for it, you should be sure down as we intend to do it, shouldn't we?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. I mean, I'm just thinking, because
How much do all the other towns pay the carnival to come to their towns? Nothing.
Well, anyway, I think we've got the
So
decision
let's
there.
have a sensible conversation with the carnival club about what's involved in them putting the carnival on, because we want it here. But let's understand it's not all just about this grant, it's about how the whole thing is managed and financed. And that's a bigger thing than this. But I think the 8,000 isn't.
2 hours, is that committees as well?
Huh?
It's 2 hours.
Different meetings. Yeah.
All meetings.
No, different meetings, so it doesn't matter.
Okay, just when you got, because it's called.
What are we up to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
15 minutes.
We're right, we're doing 15 minutes. Happy with that. It's okay, so we'll keep that in and we'll discuss the individual ones. Civic service, what are you talking
I was
about?
going to talk about the
The
members.
members, yeah, okay.
I have increased it because this year it actually cost us £12,000.
Wow.
1,200.
£1,200 for a members. Next year we need to put in an extra roadblock because last year was my first year and I catered in it, so I was reserved. So this was my first complete year, and we need to put an extra roadblock in by Gallop Twining because they kept trying to come down. We don't have enough road signs, so we need to purchase some more. The trouble is we only use them once a year, but we do legally have to put out road closure signs and bollards and everything to go with it. And you will need some new radios.
So my question is,
So I can take it
we
down.
do it once a year,
Yeah.
the Remembrance Service,
Yeah.
but presumably we have other community events where road closures and everything is required.
They use
So-
ours.
Rent them out.
Exactly, that was my rental out.
Yeah.
So rather than actually attach the capital expenditure of the assets into the Remembrance Day, actually have a different line item, road closure equipment.
Yeah, certainly. I had to put it
Yeah,
somewhere
it's fine.
because
yeah.
we need radios.
Okay, but we're agreed
Yeah.
on doing it.
So that's why it's gone up to £3,000.
Okay.
All right.
So we can do another line for
One
me, that's
question.
clear.
So why don't the Remembrance Day parade then? So I read the notes about it,
Yeah.
and it said to me it wasn't clear who runs that event.
The
Is it
Royal-
the Legion or is it the council?
It's both.
No, it can't be both.
Well, the Royal British Legion organise the parade and the service.
Right. I'll
We-
tell you how it is.
We do. So yes, we are the main responsibility. We have to cover the insurance. We have to do the road closures. We have to do all the admin.
It's our event.
So is it town council event?
Of course it's our event, okay? And within our event, the Royal British Legion perform a play. Yeah? They have a part in it.
Mhm.
The reason it's our event is because the road needs to be closed. The Royal British Legion can't close the roads. Even the Royal British Legion head office told the Legions you can't do it. It must be council. No, but it's because of the responsibility and the insurance.
That was brought in about 3 or 4
Okay.
years ago.
But the Carnival Association goes through it.
Huh?
Carnival Association has to go through it.
Oh yeah, but they're willing to take on responsibilities. So the British Legion, my apologies, British Legion head office tell the British Legion, yeah, you are not to close a road. Because, you're not to apply for it because the risk to it and the liability is quite huge. Yeah? Car go through it, terrorist attack.
I think it's in 6.
Yeah.
So can
Yeah.
we concentrate on the budget?
Yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
So
Sure.
and also it went up to 3,000 because at the moment you have a volunteer who does the PA, sets the PA up, doesn't run the PA and takes it down.
So I think you're
So
saying.
there's no issue with the amount, is there?
Yeah, no,
So-
we do.
We've got-
we
we've
do
got-
that, thank
Oh,
you.
sorry,
Yeah,
I was-
yeah.
I
When you
was-
say that,
You literally
you're speaking for it. You can't just make a statement.
That just makes sense.
I'm asking
Does
yourself.
anyone disagree with the amount?
Well, I'm just saying, I'm asking how,
Maybe- yes,
how we
right.
come to this
Okay,
figure.
listen, thank you,
And the other-
good and
And another question I'd like to ask as well is, I think the council should probably specify in the members of trade the level of hours of work it dedicates to it, so we actually have a cost figure. So at the moment we don't know. Because I think it probably requires quite a lot of work from the
It
council.
does. If I did that, you would be looking at double.
much higher figure.
Right, which is very interesting, because then we have to use these figures as a baseline for how much a event costs to run.
Okay.
That's why it's important.
Well, we could, we'd note that. Thank you, Gordon. Youth activities, this is a sort of cost that
Sorry, before we get there, I just wanted to point out that we deferred the issue of community trust grants and town trust grant until we received some figures.
Yes.
You've got
Yeah.
this afternoon.
I emailed him all this afternoon about 4:45. I only got the community trust one at 1:15 this afternoon.
Okay,
So you got an email. I've got hard copies for all of you. Wish them take them away.
brilliant.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, there's two lines at the bottom, yeah, that's similar.
So they could be, they're deferred until
Yes.
the next
Until you read it. Yeah.
We're not doing anything more to it. So say youth activities, we've spoken about that before, and that was, I think we've had a further conversation, but that's, let's keep that as it is for now. We're awaiting further confirmation from you.
Yeah, we got the information. We got a quote from them for 27,720. Yeah. I said go around like the SLA.
Question about that as well. Then, did they ask for 2 consecutive years at that value?
No.
No, because the previous time they did it, they asked for a 2-year grant of £24,000 a year.
They did. They haven't passed. But the idea was we're extending the 2-year contract into a 3rd year because we want to review the provision of the service next year. So we don't want the same thing, do we? Because we're talking about, is it the right sort of stuff? So we're just rolling it over. Because they came to a meeting, didn't they?
Yeah.
And people thought, oh, are you talking about people who've got the right thing? And there was some talk about some changes. So we're just extending the current contract with an increase in price, with the intention that come February, March, we'll start talking how it's going to be from the year after or later in that year. So it is going to be outreach, is it going to be
It's two.
building? Because they were talking about a cafe and stuff, wasn't there? So commit to do something this next year,
Yeah.
and then during the course of that, early that year,
Define it.
define it, and then you go for a tender towards the end of the year for this new service you want. It might be in a bus, not in a bus. It might be in a.
I'm just aware of the fact that we need to make sure, I think we should be connected to West. So whoever does the youth services for us, we treat them in a comparable fashion to other charities who do work for the council. So that could be a bunch of charities. So there's Youth Connect South West, could also argue it's the radio, could also argue it's other charities who do things for the council.
Well,
Yeah. No, but what you do, we commission a service under an SLA.
Yeah,
We don't just give them somebody to go and sort of do some stuff like a couple of lines.
Right.
There's a specific.
That's just about the way we have to redefine our relationship with other organisations.
Yeah.
That's right.
But if we treat if we treat those charitable trusts
Yeah.
as in the same manner,
Yeah.
okay, as a contractor,
Yeah.
then what we should be doing is going out to tender and asking if anybody else wants to do it.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah,
the same
that's
as
valid.
Youth Connect South West then.
Yeah, no,
Yeah. Yeah, but this year we've suggested that roll, because you can extend the contract, you have 1 year option to extend the contract whilst we redefine it, and then clearly there's no reason why you can't go out and tender again, and everything you buy you should tender for.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can we draw on
Yeah.
to explain that? That's right, thank you. So we'll move on to the town environment, wages and salaries,
Lots of yellow.
insurance, we talked about insurance,
Insurance, that's the car insurance.
yeah. Where, anyone any
Van
questions?
insurance, sorry, not car, van insurance.
With any of these, all sort of, moving up. Everyone all right with the town environment 204 figures?
So your ground rent, you haven't asked, but I'll explain anyway. Your grass, hedges and trees are done by Primrose Maintenance, Primrose something. They have last year you gave them a 2-year contract, so this is their 2nd year.
Yeah.
So they're
Yeah.
I've got the
You've
prices.
said all that, yes, so that.
Yeah, I said all that, yeah.
We've all
And
seen,
then
yeah.
And
We're
that
assuming
one
people
is where
said
they're
that.
all under 4039. That's
Yeah.
easy to understand because it's all the same contract.
Yeah.
And we just split it
Yeah.
out under the
Yeah.
same nomenclature code.
And then you've got to stay in Barn and do your river work and
Yeah.
do a hot water control.
Okay, that's good then.
Now,
Sharon?
I'm going to raise the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
4013 rent payable for, is it West Clues? Can't remember what it is.
Which one?
Wellowbrook. So Wellowbrook, we've got 4013 rent payable, but obviously there's also potential of 45,000 to buy it.
Yeah.
And we've not put that in the budget. So we're looking at maybe potentially, I mean, all I'm saying is that is a decision the council needs to make, isn't it, as to whether it wants to buy it
Yes.
or not. And at the moment, there's budget in place that we're not going
Yeah.
to do that. So I just wanted to highlight that,
Yeah.
because actually that is something we need to consider.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing, as I said, is that in the projected for this year, there's 5,000 scrub clearance, and it doesn't look like we're forecasting any expenditure for that, because
The scrub clearance was a duplicate entry, so I was going to keep quiet. Well, I haven't kept quiet. What happened was last year it all got very muddled and I was confused. So you had Sober Valley funding, who've just done all your scrub work and mowing and whatever. You matched fund £5,000 for that, and you've already paid it and contributed and paid it. During the conversation, even Katie and I got confused. We thought the scrub clearance was a different match funding.
Right.
It wasn't, because that's how we got from the budget. It wasn't. So you have actually only matched 5,000. So that is a spare.
Super.
So I haven't put that in your project. It's not in your projected because it was a duplicate as we got thoroughly confused. And I still get confused.
So, town environment seems okay. West Clues Recreation Ground. We spoke about that furniture and equipment item there.
Move that.
There's nothing else.
That's it.
It's contentious, and we arrive at the end. We're happy with that. There's several things for the clerk's RFO to follow up, I think.
Yeah.
Just clarify the figures, so they'll go away and do that. Anybody want to make any quick comments before we move on? No, great. So the final item on the agenda,
I've lost my agenda now.
I think, is the date of the next meeting, I would imagine, which is Monday the 16th of December.
So
So,
I'm looking over your shoulder because I've lost
Yeah.
my agenda.
so thank you very much. No, for Mr. Spare. You would do it. Thank you very much. Pinch up somebody.